Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, where it's just regular folks talking about model railroading. I am your host, Andy Dorsch, and joining me this evening in the studio is Mike Ostertag. Mike, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
You know what? I am doing pretty darn good. I'm glad to see all the bright, shining faces here tonight. We got a pretty good show. And I'm really excited to talk about model trains this evening. So
look at my lighting.
Yeah, the studio is taking shape.
Look at my lighting. Yes. It's all fancy.
Yeah, you look good.
Yeah, thanks.
And you know, the light really takes about 10 years off. You know,
well, then I need some more lights.
There you go.
Yeah, no, part of the thing with redoing my shop a little bit and everything was that I needed to get better lighting in here. And I had gotten a lot of messages over the last 3 years about that. And we've played around with it and we've tried different things. And finally, I just kind of pulled the trigger and did a couple of things myself. And yeah, I'm very bright. Yeah. So
Randy says you're bright. Can we ask questions? We had here from Just Gonna Truck It.
Didn't you just do that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we should ask questions tonight. We got
go ahead, ask questions. That's
yeah.
Fine.
Tonight we're here to ask questions.
You, but I mean, you could ask as many questions as you want.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't an echo tonight. Are we sure this is a Second Section podcast? I don't know.
Yeah, we're not sure. Time will tell. Time will tell. It's going to be it's going to be a fun show. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be an educational show. I think it's going to be something that guys will be able. I think this is going to be one of those shows where guys will go back to because there's going to be something that they're going to be able to take away. I really feel like this is going to be one of those shows where there's going to be some information out there and stuff like that and things. And hopefully we can teach you guys, or at least give you some information that you can go back to your layouts and start using or stuff like that.
Yeah. Or start a layout for that matter. Right.
Oh yeah. Which is, do you think that's like one of the hardest things to do? Is to make your initial decision as to how you want to start a layout?
Yeah, I absolutely think that is, it's the hardest thing, right? Because you have to get like past this moment of inertia, to just finally come up with some sort of concept or some sort of plan to really, really get into it. And so Just Gonna Truck It. How do you design large industrial complexes? I'm trying to serve multiple large industries. So Mike and I are going to talk on both of those topics this evening.
Yes. We will.
So we're going to want to sit tight, but yeah, I think it's Mini Prince, think small. It's that's true.
Think small.
So
Bernard,
we're going to look at two sides of the spectrum, right?
So right. Always got to think small.
You always got to think small.
Yeah, and it's really kind of funny that who was it? Just Got to Truck It actually asked that question, because you and I had this question. I had this actual question where I was, and we'll get into this a little later, but I was actually starting to struggle with my Farland Farland Terminal.
The old Turple.
Yeah, the Turple.
Yeah.
The Farland Terminal Railroad's identity and what the actual purpose behind the railroad was. Because when I went back and I looked at the way I have things set up now, it just seems kind of like it's kind of like all over the map.
Sure.
So I wanted to get that narrowed down, and I think I got it. And we'll share that a little later because it goes into his other part of his question.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it does.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, 100%. So that I guess to not to bury the topic of the show. So tonight we're going to talk about designing the right model railroad for you. And both Mike and I are going to share basically some of the things that we've done. So Mike is building a modular shelf layout. I'm building more of a basement sprawling type, larger. Well, now we'll call it medium size to large layout, and we're gonna share our insights on kind of how we got going, especially if you wanted to develop a freelance model railroad, and even apply it to a prototype model railroad. Some of the things that you're gonna want to do. So we're gonna talk about that.
Do
Go
you
ahead,
think
Mike.
would you consider the Mesquiten Valley kind of a pseudo proto freelance? Or would
I
it
don't
be just
know.
because I I know this you're gonna right after the show you're gonna drive up here and belt me in the chops. I know for saying this. I know you are. But whenever I think of the Mesquiten Valley, I always think that it's it's kind of a railroad that should have been type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
No, 100%.
in all reality, the Mesquiten Valley Railroad should have been literally a prototype railroad just based off of the lines that you're kind of and the things that you're looking at and the locations that you've done.
Right.
It totally could be a realistic railroad,
Yeah.
but yet it's a freelance railroad.
Right.
So you know what I'm do you know where I'm coming from here?
Yeah. 100%. I think
Yeah,
Tom
right,
Klimovsky. Tom Klimovsky
the
got,
master,
yeah, one of the masters himself.
one of the
He must
masters.
have got a preview at the slides that I put together for this evening, because he is hitting all of my topics that we got. But so we're going to talk about our layout designs. We'll talk a little bit about track planning, because I do want to I want to touch on a few of those topics as well, and then before all of that, I do have a couple of products that I am extremely geeked out about before we get into that. So, Mike, what do you say we kick it over to the Greasy Meat Hands band here? We're gonna do a little
Yeah.
ditty here and get on to our first segment of the evening here. So hit it. All right, it is time for hashtag not sponsored. And this is the part of the show where Mike and I talk about things in model railroading. Um, all sorts of
Things.
things like locomotives and rolling stock and buildings and scenery and all the stuff that we can buy that we just absolutely love, and we just want to promote. We are not getting paid to promote any of these items on the show tonight, but the first one I do want to promote
You all
is,
right?
no, I had chili for dinner, and it
Oh, jeez
is,
Louise. Oh, great.
and it's a Southwestern chili, and it is just got some heat
Nice.
to it.
Nice.
But anyway, it's this little guy that's sitting right back here behind me, and that is the Home Shops version, VNO version, Virginia and Ohio, of the Rapido C30-7. And this thing, I'm gonna do a little, I might do a little screen share here. So I took some pictures of it, and I gotta say, this is one of the coolest locomotives I have. And so let me pull this up here. I got to get my act together here. But
Now,
yeah,
what is it based off of one of the specific prototypes? Like it was, or
I think it's the CSX one. If I'm not, because I
okay.
think we had the folks on the show from Home
Yeah, that's
Shops
right.
and the
Yeah,
and
we
the
did.
VNO. You were there,
I was there. I
and
was.
we went into the prototype. It is the plain Jane version, but oh man, it is super cool. So this is what it looks like on the Mascoutin Valley, and I was really impressed when I took it out of the box. You can see the tread, the diamond plate on the walkways. Look at the fuel fill. You can see the text, on this thing, and the detail all around it, the truck detail or the side frames, The paint is super crisp, clean.
The bolt heads on the grab iron or on the stanchions.
Yes, right
There,
here.
yeah, right there. That's
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah. So home shops paint, I guess, markup of this, or the paint scheme that they put together for this locomotive was fantastic. And just like if you look at the radiator here with the grab iron, different color, I really like that. You got the see-through screens and all the different, louver detail. It's just really, really good. All of the little the danger or the warning labels on the doors for the long hood, also really, really good. So the speed recorder here, also good. And then the front end detail is, here's another look at it. And you can see, look at the
Wow.
chain there for the
Oh, yeah.
brake. That's that is super cool. Look at that detail. And you're thinking, boy, what does it run like? And so I took it down to the Ripon Model Railroad club that I belong to here in town, and I ran it on their layout to break it in. And I'm telling you,
Do we have a video of that?
I don't. I was the club was super busy. We had like 10 members running on it, and I didn't want to, get so and so on camera farting in front of the locomotive at the time. But here's a front end shot of it.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, protect the names of the innocent there. But look at the snow plow on the front, really cool detail there, and just the the front end detail with the lights. I got the DCC sound version from them with the Loke sound inside of it, and it is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So
it looks really, look at how fine those windshield wipers look.
yeah,
That looks really, really, really good. Wow.
yeah, it is a really amazing locomotive. And
they even have the step. Man, that right there, it's not even a step light right there, the way it's facing. But that's the way some of those are. I think that's a light to illuminate down towards the knuckle.
yeah, towards the coupler.
So that when you're working down there, it's like part of the step light, so it would be on. But I mean, so when you're working down there, it's illuminated. Oh my goodness, they even have the, holy cow, that looks really good. And it's crisp.
Yeah. The lettering down here by the pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed. And then to top it off, it was a really good runner.
Yeah.
And I mean, I am sold on Rapido locomotives. It's just,
isn't that something when the way it runs is secondary to how it looks?
Well, I mean,
it shouldn't be, but I mean, it's just, it just looks so beautiful,
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And I just, like I said, here's a look at the head on, and the horn and stuff like that. The picture's a little blurry, and I apologize for that. But again, just super cool locomotive, and I am really, really excited about this. So so what did I use to take those photos? Heath, I used my cell phone, and it it kind of shows, right? So it is a really cool locomotive. And then you can still get them from home shops. So if you go out to their, yeah, I think they got I shouldn't say this. They have on their website, they're still available under the advanced purchase. And so you can see on their website under advanced purchases, if you go to there, you can see expected arrival in January, and they're starting to ship out, and only 48 of each road number were made.
And then there were 18 that were non-sound of each number, right?
That's right. Yep. 18 of each road number were non-sound, right, and DC silent equipped. Wow. So I might have to pick up another one because they're pretty damn cool. And then, just the little things that Rapido puts in their like I I actually read through the whole instruction manual. I've
Did you
never done that.
really?
Absolutely.
Did you
It was
really?
just hilarious. You know, and
I've always
it
heard
was
that that's what they do is they make their instruction manuals are absolutely a hoot.
yeah. I mean, it's so cool. And I know Justin, he's got his out there as well. And he loves his and says he's gonna um, you know, get another one himself. I don't know. It's super cool engine. It really is. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a really, really good choice by Home Shops to work with
Yeah.
Rapido on that one. And it was almost like
Yes.
a no-brainer slam dunk. And then especially after having the guys from the VNO and everything on the show and hearing
Mhm.
how some of the future history was being planned for the VNO and how some of
Right.
that works into it. The C30-7 was totally just a slam dunk, no brainer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really really cool.
Yeah. And um Soko Olds, 455 says when you can see the application, actuation, and reservoir labels, that's super impressive.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah. You can actually
So
see those. You can't even see those half the time in real life.
no,
Half the
no.
time they're all dirty and they're all covered up. So
Yep, full of schmegma.
yeah,
That's
whatever
right.
you want to call it.
That's what it is.
Gunk.
Okay. So you said you didn't have anything for not sponsored, but I did have
Well,
one more thing.
well, I do have this. I
Well,
am
why don't
working
you talk
on.
about your thing?
Okay, so I am working on this Bend Central S scale covered hopper, 47 Pullman Standard 4750 covered hopper, and this is the older version when Ben Truesdale was printing himself, and now they're available through 3D uh,
3D Central,
3D
right?
Central. Yeah, 3D
Yeah.
Central. So now they're a little bit different type of resin and stuff like that. But let me tell you, these are a really really cool kit. It's a lot of fun to put together. Really well detailed. Um, it's not something you're going to slap together in an evening.
Oh,
You do need a little bit of patience because some of the resin parts like oh, what the heck was that?
it just
Like
broke in
all
half.
this is no, no, this is the whole B and end cage, and the end cage, coupler mount, and bolster all comes as
Hmm.
one piece. So you have to be dainty with it and gentle, and you have to just not you can't just go and like start slamming it around and stuff. But like even the underframe comes in different parts, and
Yeah.
the details on the hatches are it's hard to see in this camera, but like it the holes and everything are on here for the opening devices to be able to open the hatches on the bottom. It is really really well done. It's a really cool car. And I have 7 of these to put together. So
Oh, it sounds like
uh
your winter's pretty well.
yeah, I got 7 of these, and I've got so many projects now that I've got a shop that my desk is open. So if you're in HO scale and you want to dabble a little bit in a different scale, one of these kits is really really kind of fun. It'd be an interesting way and a fun way to dabble in a different scale. And I'd be more than happy to help somebody with
There you go.
finding like parts or trying to like point them in the direction to acquire what they need to acquire, and stuff like that. I'd be more than happy to help with that. And it's kind of like the same thing as like what Boomer did. Boomer dabbles in O scale every once in a while.
Yes.
He did a whole car build, that 40-foot boxcar build, and
And a
that
diorama.
that little diorama thing, and it turned out
Mhm.
amazing.
Yes, it
And
did.
it's so yeah, don't be afraid to you know
Well,
dip your toe into something a little different. Just because you model one thing doesn't mean you can't do the same thing in a different
yeah.
scale, you know?
I mean, think about it. You're a scale modeler, right? So you don't have to be locked into one scale, right? So you look at
Right.
the armor or the airplane model, the military modelers, right? They'll go from, what is it? They're 135th to
Like 124th
172nd,
or
and
yeah.
yeah. So
And the
I think
airplanes get even weirder with their scales.
yeah,
Some of those
right.
are like
Or
it's just in
ships, 1 to
yeah,
800,
ships.
right?
Yeah, 1 to 800. Yeah. Yeah,
So
those things are
no,
absolute behemoths, you know? So,
yep. So the last thing that I do want to talk about, and I did talk about this on Brew with the Crew on
yes,
Saturday,
we
but I do,
did. We
and
got it.
that was a
No,
rocking good
mine's in the
time.
other room.
You got
That's
yours?
okay. I got mine. It's in the other room. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is the Minneapolis Northfield and Southern Railway book. This is the equipment and color guide that William Sampson put together with help with a bunch of folks in the railroad community. But um, this is possibly one of the best books about just a railroad and its equipment in general. So again, it gives you timelines, gives you all sorts of information about not only about the railroad but the equipment itself, and it's just a um, fantastic reference guide to have if you model the MNS, or if you just like collecting books and learning about railroads. This is a must have. I gotta say, and the thing is thick. I mean, you get your money's worth for it. I think they're
Yeah,
going
it's
for
like
70
230
$79.
232 pages, I think it is, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
Where a lot of
he
books like that are half
no,
that,
right.
you know.
So it's a really good like I said, read. It's very, very well done. The graphics are super sharp. I mean, it's just like his YouTube channel. So and if you do want to order one, um let's see here. I think I have a QR code
Yep, there we go.
so that you guys can scan. I'll get rid of that old hashtag not sponsored.
There we go.
Otherwise, you can go to tinyurl.com slash MNS book. So you can download the QR code right now, take you to the order page. Otherwise, make sure that you check out his link there at the bottom. And I think the blue and the white ones are now sold out. So make
Yep.
sure you get your copy, because I don't think these are going to be going back on the secondary market.
I
So,
don't think. I tell you what, I've got like I said on Brew with the Crew, I've got an entire library full of railroad books in the other room about all sorts of different stuff. And this is the most comprehensive book about a short line
yeah,
railroad that I have ever seen. This
yeah,
this to be perfectly honest with you, this may be an over the top, and I might be saying this kind of as a fanboy, because I William
you?
Sampson,
Oh,
yeah, but I mean William Sampson and is a friend of the show. He's a friend of an actual friend of Andy and mine's,
yeah,
but this book and the way he put this together is most likely, in my opinion, the new benchmark as to how every book from here on out should be looked at,
yeah,
especially this style of book. I mean, it's more than just a documentary of the equipment.
yeah,
There's so much information in there that, I mean, it's 5 years in the making.
yeah,
It's just absolutely phenomenal. You don't have to be a fan of that railroad to enjoy the book. It just, you'll appreciate it if you buy it. You will definitely get something out of it.
yeah.
That would be
So we have a question here for you, Mike. So
yeah.
Soko Olds is saying, would you call the MNS a short line or a bridge line?
It's a short line. It's a bridge route. It's a bridge route, but it's a short line railroad.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a difference between the two. It's a bridge line You usually have short lines, regionals, or class ones. You know,
Yeah.
so
Kirsten Road says, I resisted the temptation to buy it from William last weekend so that I would start modeling the MN&S.
I tell you what, I think I even told you that. I'm like, this book makes me want
Yeah.
to model the M&S.
And then you go watch his YouTube channel and he builds the models around it and then gives you the history, even a deeper look into it. And you're thinking, oh my God,
yeah,
this
it's
is a
like,
cool
okay,
railroad.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's too
And
cool.
an SD39, right?
2 of them.
Yeah, they had 2 of them.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
Who'd have thought? What a choice.
So that's going to bring us to the closure here of hashtag not sponsored. Again, these are things that we don't get paid to promote, but we do love them, and we want to essentially help the folks that do bring these wonderful products to us. So if you do end up buying them, say you heard it here on the second section. For sure. So let's get into the meat and the bones of it now. So let's design the right model railroad for you.
Okay.
So it's model railroad season. We're in the heart of it. It's show season. We got Amherst coming up. We're going to be going and buying some goodies, right?
Yeah.
But we have some space and we want to build a layout. So I gotta ask you, or maybe what I could do is I could start with my little. Do you want me to start tonight, or do you want to start?
Oh no, absolutely. You go ahead.
You know what? I'm gonna give her. Yep, Mike Shanky's right. There is a show this weekend in Stevens Point.
Oh yeah,
Arctic Run.
Arctic Run. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a well attended one here in Wisconsin. So for anyone in Wisconsin on the line tonight, I think that's Saturday, Sunday deal. So
yeah, get your butt up.
But you know what? Point. Yes, get your butt up to Stevens Point. So I think what we're gonna do is I have like a quasi presentation. I don't normally do this, but I want to talk about just a couple of the things that I went into that helped me, quote unquote, design my layout. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a hot second here. Sound effects included, right? So,
wow, look at that. See, you got to teach me how to do this kind of stuff. That's pretty cool looking, dude.
Oh,
that's actually really neat.
So I want to talk about the Mascoutin Valley, or my model railroad, a little bit this evening. We don't really dive into it, but I wanted to share my story about how I actually designed the railroad and how it's kind of morphed over the years, and how I settled on what I really wanted to model. And so just to give you guys a background of what I'm modeling it, I wanted to give it the setting of northern Wisconsin. So I did take a lot of time to think about what is it that I wanted to model in terms of geographic location, but I also put in a lot of thought into the commodities that my railroad was going to haul. And you talked about it early on, Mike, about giving your railroad purpose.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first things that I did was I wanted to give my railroad a purpose. And I think that's one of the, even if you're doing the prototype, right? You know, the prototype, I think it was Just Truck It, was talking about, well, I want to serve a couple of major industries, right? Those industries give your railroad purpose. And what I wanted to focus on was iron ore operations. And so I started to kind of chew up kind of think about it and chew it up in my brain and digest it and say, okay, we're gonna look at doing this in the northern part of Wisconsin where iron ore is, could potentially be found. So it's plausible. And then I wanted to do my own short line, or not short line, but like a class 2 regional railroad. Not a big, Canadian National, Union Pacific, but but like a Wisconsin Central,
Yeah.
something in the middle there,
Yeah, that's
or
kind of
Wisconsin
cool.
Southern.
Yeah.
Yep. So the first part was I gave it a lot of thought on what I wanted my railroad to be. Same with the equipment. I didn't want it to all be Gevos or something of that nature. I wanted this weird hand-me-down mix of power, and so yeah, I think that's and then you can see on the right hand side here, I have a couple of influences, that really brought my railroad into focus. So I knew I wanted an iron ore pellet plant. So that's in the upper right hand corner. That's the Groveland mine facility. Mike and I may talk about that a
Yeah.
lot. That was actually in
Yeah.
Randville, Michigan, in the UP, and it was a cool little mine operation that the Milwaukee Road actually serviced, and it's just neat. The buildings are kind of odd. They had these concrete silos in the back.
Those are really weird.
Whoops. Yeah.
Those were actually very, very weird.
Yep.
Yeah, those stone silos. Richest ore deposit in Upper Peninsula, and it's
Really?
still accessible. They just don't use it anymore. That's all there is to it. The mine shut down. So
Yeah, it was shut down in the 80s.
yeah,
Early 80s. And then
Yep.
what the old Marinette and the
Marinette, Tomahawk, and Western.
The Marinette.
That's Tomahawk Railroad, same power, just a little different. That's awesome. I love that railroad. I was just up there a year and a half ago. We need to go back up there.
And then this is the paper mill that was serviced by the Chicago Northwestern at Niagara.
Nice.
So yeah, this is another one of those big things that kind of influenced it. So you can kind of get, so this didn't all happen overnight, so this, was a lot of conversations with Mike. It was, looking around and kind of figuring out what are the big things, what are the big major themes that I want this railroad to be. So yeah, so this is kind of where we start to bring the focus in. So northern Wisconsin, iron ore, paper, C628s, and that type of stuff.
So how did you settle on the era that you decided to go with? I see it says 1987 up there. So
yeah.
So what is the significance of 1987? Is there a specific significance or?
Yes. So there's a reason there is a reason why I chose 1987. So let me see here. I want to pull down that logo there because it's kind of in the way. But why I chose 1987 was for the reason right down here in the lower right hand corner was the Alco C628. So the Chicago Northwestern was casting these off, I think in 85 and 86, and they were looking for. They had them essentially in what they call a deadline up in Escanaba until 86, and they were looking for someone to pedal them off on, and I think these all got scrapped, if I'm not mistaken. I think they got sold. You're right. I think they got traded in and scrapped, and which is a shame because they're really cool. They're cool looking locomotives. They have a unique that Alco sound. And it's just it reminds me of when I was a kid seeing them up by like Iron Mountain, Michigan, right? They would come through there, and I'd get to see one of these every now and then, one or two of them. So there's a reason, because I wanted these locomotives on my layout, but then I also wanted to kind of go back to the nostalgia factor, when I was a kid, and having really good memories up north.
if you really, honestly though, if you really want to see and find out how those C628s really were, there's a couple of really good videos on YouTube. With and I might try to find them here, and if I can find them, I'll send you the link, Andy, so you can leave the link in the show notes. But it's they do interviews with the shop personnel in Green Bay who were maintaining those.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's like 2 or 3 videos, right? It's something like that along that line.
5 videos.
5 videos, and it's absolutely phenomenal. The video series itself is awesome. But the really neat part about the whole thing is listening to the guys and out of the Green Bay shop, their absolute love for those locomotives and the pride that they took in making sure that those things stayed running.
Yeah.
They were phenomenal.
The video series is called Centuries of the North Woods.
Yes, that's it. Yes, it is.
And I forget who East End Productions is the
I think Paul Scott August might have the link to it.
Yeah. There it is. Yep. Centuries of the North Woods. Yep. So I
highly recommend, even if you just want to find out more about how Alcos or the C628s and stuff, they were iconic up in northern Wisconsin. They were just, I never realized they spent a little time on the Cowboy line. I never knew that.
Yeah, when the CNW first brought them in, I think it was in '73. They spent, Drew, I wish they would too. I wish Bowser would reissue those too.
Your pocketbook can't afford them to.
What?
Your pocketbook can't afford that.
Hey, I can always put out a second mortgage on the house.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, these were not made in Beloit, I don't think. So they originally were on the Norfolk and Western. The ones that are made in Beloit were by Fairbanks Morris.
I think they would have been made in Erie, Pennsylvania, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right. Yep.
Yeah, but originally built in Erie, Pennsylvania, or Hornell, No, that's where stuff got rebuilt, right? Was it Hornell, New York? Yeah, Schenectady. Good call. Good call.
Boy, Soko Olds is just killing it tonight. Yeah, there's Robert Glides.
Top of things, crying out loud.
There you go.
Schenectady. Yep.
There you go. So so you can kind of see. So there was a lot of thought that was put into at least figuring out like this milestone or this goal or this guiding the North Star, right? My compass north was, this is what I wanted to do. And this is what I wanted to model. So I had to start bringing, taking this and starting to boil this down into, what engineers would call requirements, and really start to dial it in. So here's the current look at the system map of the Mascoutin Valley, and you can see, and if you go out to Google Maps and follow everything, the mileage is pretty close to 578. I may have fudged it a little bit, but it's kind of the line that should have been. Almost follows the Chicago Northwestern and Milwaukee Road up through to Antigo, and then there's a connection essentially between Chippewa Falls and Menominee, Michigan. And so the story is that we used to have a line between Blackwell and Antigo, but there was a washout here, and we never repaired the trackage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
We do have a connection with the Wisconsin Midwestern down here in Auroraville. So we do have some special power that comes by on the Mascoutin Valley every now and then from Mike's.
That's my HO scale freelance railroad.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as you can see, this is a pretty expansive map. I'm only modeling from Menominee all the way up this line, which essentially goes to Pine River Junction here. So these 4 dots, it's about 75 miles. is all I'm modeling, and that's the Pelican River sub is what I'm actually modeling.
No, isn't it kind of fun to kind of work through the rest of it though, and see
Yeah.
how the rest of the railroad is going to affect the Pelican River sub?
Yep.
I mean, have you figured that portion, or have you dabbled with any of those kind of things at all yet?
Yes. So I think Tom Klimovsky, had said you got to have an operations plan, right? And
Yes.
so what I wanted to do is, I knew I wanted to do iron mining, and I knew I wanted to do a paper mill and other wood products from the north, right? So I the iron mine itself, the way they make pellets, or they did back in the 80s, they would bring in bentonite, clay, and acid, and all these other raw materials, where they would clean up the ore after they crushed it, process it, and then they would use this bentonite stuff to mix into the slurry and make these little, they're little balls, right, of
Right.
iron ore. And so bentonite was primarily found out in the western part of the United States. So having this connection over here to Chippewa Falls gets me access to the CNW, the BN, out here, where I could get that raw material, bring it in through Antigo, stage it in Menominee, and then have it go to the Crandon mine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Similarly, getting wood chips from out west to bring into the paper mill. And then acid and aggregate and other materials coming from the southern part of the railroad. So that's all feeding into this Menominee area, feeding the paper mill at Blackwell, the Crandon mine, and then the Pine River wood products there at the end of the line. So there was a lot of thought given into what comes in and then what goes out, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did I answer your question or not really?
You almost need to do stuff like that, because without having the direction, the industrial base is what you need to start making the railroad plausible, right? For at least for a fictional railroad, I would think. Real railroads got that already all done for you, right? So, but for like a fictional railroad, you need to have that purpose behind, the reason for the railroad to be. And so that really helps to make those connections and have that, have that story, and I think that's the hardest part of designing the layout's easy compared to that.
Well, and there's a question here from Humanity Junction, like how did you decide how much of the entire railroad to build? Or I think he asked it again here. How did you cut from 578 to 85 miles of rail? And so this is a really good segue into that requirements discussion that I was talking about. So this is I made a list of the things that what I needed, and the things that I really wanted. And when you talk about model railroad design, it's not just the track plan, right? For me, a lot of it, and I do woodworking and stuff like that, but a lot of it had to do with, I needed to have good bench work. I needed to have wide aisles. I wanted good lighting in the basement. And I wanted, my mechanicals, or my furnace, water softener, water heater, all that stuff not to be buried by the railroad. But to kind of drill down and say, okay, I only want to model this portion of it, was these other requirements on the right-hand side of the screen. What do I want, right? So I want the Chicago Northwestern C628s. I really wanted the ore operations, and having an ore dock. And typically, the iron mines were relatively close to where they would,
Yep.
dump out into the dock. So in some cases they would be, 100 miles away or something like that. But I knew that the main focus of this railroad would be running ore trains back and forth. And so I knew that this part of the railroad was where I wanted to focus on. And then I wanted to have big and small customers rail served. And then after I wanted to have the big basement empire, right? And I don't this requirement came through a lot of pain and and suffering of multiple layouts. But I think I really, when I started operating at other people's railroads and I saw the larger layouts, I just fell in love with them because it felt like I was going somewhere, right?
Right. Yep.
And some of the layouts that I've operated on, they had space in between the towns. Like Alan Schrader's
Oh,
BN Marias Pass is a great example of that, right?
that's a
You
phenomenal railroad.
It's really cool. But I think that was the one that really sold me on. I mean, and there was Bob Welke and of course Luke Lemons and and maybe there was just a bit of peer pressure from them. I don't know, but just having that big layout was something that I always wanted.
And the thing is too is it's okay to be selfish in that respect, right? I mean, it as a model railroader, so many times we want to give in to like what the culture is at the time with the hobby, to try to have that meet our desires at the particular time. And what you really end up doing is acquiring a lot of stuff that really doesn't fit what you ever want, and then you end up circling back and needing to get the things you want when you could have done that in the first place.
Yeah.
Instead, it's I think I'm gonna get this wrong. Gibbons and Druthers, right? It's kind of
No,
like a
yeah,
little. It's not
Givens
the
and
same. Well, it's kind of the same, right?
it's exactly the same. It's just
Same,
I
but
use
yeah,
I use less fancy words, right?
yes, right,
I'm a simple man, so it's
yeah,
what do I need? So these are the things I can't budge on
yeah,
versus what do I want?
and it's okay for you to have a laundry list of things that you want on a railroad. The big issue is how realistic is the ability to achieve those wants.
Oh,
That's that I mean, you could say you want a huge railroad, but if you're if you are don't have the space for that, now you need to, kind of change the way you're looking at things. You could, if you don't have the space for the big basement empire, you can always build a small little portion of it and do the rest of it in the computer. So
mhm.
that way one day down the road, when you do have the space, you've got everything all set and ready to go, you know. So I mean, that's
Yeah.
just an opinion of mine. I mean, it's just I'm by far no expert on it. But
And so that's one of the other things that I've also thought about is, so I've always had an affinity to go back and do one of my older first layouts that I did was a Chicago Northwestern Marsh Line, right?
yeah, yep,
And there's going to come a point here while I'm building the Mascoutin Valley, and the Mascoutin Valley is going to be this is what I'm going to be known for, right? But what what I what I want to do is someday figure out a way to build a bunch of modules of the marsh line, and
yeah,
then take that to a show.
sure,
Store them down here in the basement. Figure out how to take them, to the show and go from there. And yeah, I mean, I don't have to stick to one subject, but this one's always going to be here, and this is the one I'm always going to push forward on. So there's a lot of good comments coming in, and I do want to Um, take a look here.
There's a
So
lot on there's a lot on both of those lists that
yeah,
is there is and I'm not just blowing smoke here. I don't see anything on either one of those lists that is not achievable or attainable with what you have for a space. I've been to your house countless times. I know the space. We've had conversations countless times about this exact stuff.
yep,
And I find this is the hardest part of building a railroad. I really believe that this is the hardest part of building a railroad. And if you've got ADHD like me, where anything that's shiny looks good to you at that particular moment, and you have a tendency to veer off to this, well, now I'm going to go down this rabbit hole and this rabbit, you can really find yourself wanting for a lot of stuff. So to have your goals written down is really, really cool and really important, I think.
yeah. So there's a couple of good questions that I do want to get to before we move on.
Yeah.
So Christian Kramer, as an inverse to Humanity Junction's question, why design the 500 plus miles of freelance railroad when you're only going to model 85 miles? So I think what I wanted to do was give the, like I said, I wanted to have a medium sized railroad, so that way I could rotate through a lot of power. So I could have so short lines. I might just be pigeonholed into one or two different locomotives. I wanted to have that lease power from the Chicago Northwestern with those C628s, and I wanted to give the illusion of freight or materials coming in and then materials going out across wherever, right? So for example, the paper coming from the paper mill, that could go to points south and west from where I was going, and essentially give that illusion that I'm going to connect to another railroad, and then they're going to take it from me and then take it across the country. So I think for my aspect, that's why I decided to do that. I guess that different the approach to think about 500 miles as opposed to just the 85.
I think of it like in a rail fanning aspect, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of times I'll go and I'll rail fan the same 35 miles worth of the CP,
Yeah.
and there's 11,000 other miles worth of that railroad to go that I don't know that's there, but those cars and those trains came from locations that were points beyond. So it's, to narrow your scope like that and have the story of a larger system, because you can't
Yeah.
model the whole 500 miles. Well, you could if you won the lottery.
If I had an airplane hangar, I would.
Oh, that
I
would be so
absolutely
cool.
would. So
Oh,
another good question here, Humanity Junction. Why do you want a continuous run, and why is it at the top of my wants list? So there's
ooh,
two reasons. The first one was um, I just there's something about having my main line open. There's that chili coming back again, and I can be working on various parts of the model railroad, and I can have trains on, just kind of circling around. It's for me, it's relaxing. It also lets me have a nice long run to break in equipment. So like with the old C30-7. After the show tonight, I'm probably gonna put the bridges back in and fire it up and let her run around the track a little bit. And then I also have an 8-year-old boy who's into trains, right? And he may not be all knobs on 10 concerning operations and point to point stuff. So for him to run trains around in a circle at this stage keeps him engaged. So that was one of the main, I think that was the top reason for my design factor here. Was I wanted to share it with him as well and keep him engaged in it, and I knew that having a continuous run would help me do that.
that's very cool.
Yeah. So, okay. So he wants to. Damn that chili. How does it? How does the loop play into my operations? It doesn't. Um, the loop does not play into it. So, Mike, if I'm missing questions, make sure to throw them up because I'm on the other screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
No,
Yep.
that's
Yep. Yep.
okay. It's all
Let's
right.
see here.
You're all
Let me
good.
see
Rail
if I can.
fanning, BNLE, Bob, rail fanning. Yeah, that's another reason, right? I think that's one of the things that I want to bring up.
You always
Because
want to rail
that's,
fan it's always fun to like rail fan your own railroad sometimes, right? You
yeah,
want to be able to have photos of your railroad that look like you're standing at the side of the track, and I think Tom covered that in his book, didn't he? Tom
yeah,
Klomoski, where if you're going to build it for if you're building the railroad for photography, or if you're building the railroad for what was the other to just photography, or there's another term there.
like,
There's two different, yeah, like operations, or if you're just building it to build it or whatever. So
yeah,
I mean, it's yeah, rail fanning is always, it's fun to rail fan your rail. I love rail fanning other people's railroads. That to me is
yeah.
a lot of fun.
Bob Welke's is a fun one to, well,
Well,
was a fun one.
it was his
Yeah,
new one's gonna be awesome. You
yeah.
know,
So here's an interesting question. Would you consider automating your continuous loop? Yes, I would. The reason being is that, let's say if I were to have an open house, right? I want to, if I could automate it somehow, for when my swing gates are open and people are coming in and out of the layout, um, I would automate it that way to protect the trains. So, yeah,
we're gonna have to we'll have to explore that option.
yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. That's another good question. So I guess kind of to yeah, the motorman from ISE, right? That would probably be a way to get into it.
That that's an interesting way of doing it. I have one. I I don't know how that would work on a continuous run, though. I thought that was always for change of direction. I'm not sure if it is or not. Um, I'm not sure. That's interesting. That might be a new way of doing using that.
Yeah. So this is a question that came in. Paul Stamps, Finger Lakes Railway, good YouTube channel, by the way. I love seeing the stuff that he comes out with. Finish the basement or just jump in? This is an interesting question, because I I have my basement's very weird. I have painted cement walls and block walls and stone wall, and um, I think if I had the chance to do it all over again, I would do room prep. So right now, I actually got 12 sheets of drywall sitting just right over there and some studs on the floor. And I'm at the one room in the back I'm finishing off. Um, for a layout like this size, I am going to do and finish it. I have painted, partially painted rafters in spots and some ceilings overhead. So I think for me, I would, if I were to make a push, I would do it. However, you know what? It's your railroad. If you don't want to do it, don't do it, because I mean, like if you do something like this, you're not really looking at all the crap around you anyway, right? You're not looking at the rafter or the floor joists or the concrete floor or whatever. You're looking at the models. So yeah, yep.
I kind of think
So
if you're using the room for something else other than the model railroad,
yes,
by all means, go ahead and get it finished off. That's what I'm doing in my basement right now. I've just got to paint and then do some flooring, and my room will be done. But uh, if it's strictly for the railroad itself, I mean, the aesthetics of a nicely finished wall are one thing, but if you don't plan on doing anything other than having the railroad on it, your backdrop can serve as, you know what I mean? Your backdrop
Yeah.
can serve as your wall hangings and things of that nature, and therefore you're not, you're not delaying the construction of your railroad any further by finishing the room. Lighting, I think, is important. Making sure you have a well lit room is, I think, almost more important than actually finishing the room as a whole in the first place.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of, I guess if you go back to my wants and needs list, right? Um, so the things that I wanted on here was good lighting, right?
Yep.
I absolutely need that. So I have good overhead lighting for the aisleways, and then in the layout itself, up in the valance, I have LED strip lighting in there as well. And that harkens back to Heath's question about night operations. So I have multicolor LED strip lights, and I turn them way down and turn them blue, to kind of give that moonlit type of feel. And then I have like my buildings are lit, so it kind of plays into that hand with the nighttime operations.
Got a good question here.
Yeah, what's that?
Late Night Model Railroads asks, when planning your scenes, do you figure out the structure placement, etc. first, or do you lay the track and fill the scene afterwards?
Okay. So this is what's worked for me. I don't, like I said, everyone's a little bit different in how they compose the scenes. So overall, like with what you saw behind me here, or the Pine River Junction in front, or the Iron Mine, I actually will take, like, let's say I need to put in a grain, like a silo or something. I'll use this cup as a stand-in, and I'll put stand-ins in, and then just lay the track in spots. I'll put cars in those spots, before I lay anything down. And then I'll actually kind of do a little playing where I'll move the cars around with my hand, my greasy meat hands, right?
Yep.
And and we'll go back and go back, and I see you over here with your meat hands here, just greasy meat hands moving cars back and forth. I'm like,
Jeez Louise. I was waiting to see how long it would take before that showed up.
I couldn't resist. But yeah, and so I'll do all of that before I actually put the cork down, or draw out where the track is going to go. A lot of the stuff I never put down like a real track plan per se before I started building. My track plan came after. So what do I use for strip lights? I use the Fiat, or Fiat. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I got them from Costco, and you can get them at Menards. And how they hold up, pretty darn good. I've had them in here for 3-4 years, and hasn't been a problem.
They're pretty good. Do you happen to remember what the lumen is on those? How bright they get?
No, I don't. I don't have the box on me, and I'm not a LED strip light aficionado, so I couldn't tell you. Yeah, good questions. These are really good questions. So I think Heath asked, just to kind of keep the conversation going, is the version of the Mascoutin Valley you see 1.0 or 2.0? It's actually 3.0.
So 1 + 2 = 3, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I had all these requirements in my mind, and the only way I really learn is by doing, right? So I had a couple of versions of the Mascoutin Valley. The first one was just isolated to this room. It was a room size layout, and the trains were short, which there's nothing wrong with short trains if you're doing like a mom pop type industries or end of the line type service, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted, ore hauling, which is typically longer trains and, freight to go from one side of the railroad to another. So you can kind of see where I had this disconnect right off the bat of, what I really wanted versus what I was building. And you could see that kind of go through as I would basically tear down a layout, right away, and then I would then turn it around, build something else, and then tear it down because I kind of confined myself into this space, and I really wasn't, um, really wasn't happy with the requirements I'd put down versus what I had built. Yes, Henry, what's up?
So could I talk to the crew? I just want to say hi.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and say hi.
Hi, Henry.
Hey guys,
How's it going?
it's going good.
That's awesome. Getting ready to
Yeah,
go to bed?
really.
You getting ready
Huh?
to go to bed? You getting ready
Yeah,
to go to bed?
I just have to fill up my water bottle.
Nice.
Yeah.
You got
And
hockey
then,
this week? You got hockey this weekend?
no, I don't.
No.
Someone says hi, Henry, to me in the chat. Yeah. Another person says hi, because
You need to go to bed, dude.
I know.
All right, go to bed.
Okay, see you
All
guys.
right. See ya, Henry.
Good. Yeah. Yep.
Ooh, here's a question for you.
Okay.
Dan Leddick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leduc.
What will be your Leduc, what will be your main focus attraction on your short line?
Ooh. Okay. So this is a good.
It's a loaded
Good.
question.
It is. So oh man, I have three things that are going to be the primary focus of the railroad. The first thing is going to be the ore dock, and so I'm building. So on the other side of this wall, I have an ore dock, and it is about 12 feet long, and there will be a ore boat, full size, in there, being serviced by that dock. So that'll be one of the big scenes on the layout. The other will be the iron mine, or the iron pellet plant. And it's going to be try to be as faithfully modeled from the Groveland mine as best I can. And that itself is a 14-foot, I guess, industry that I have in there that's going to be modeled. And then the Niagara paper mill will be the third thing.
That's really going to be cool. And the neat thing is, for those that don't know how Andy's, I'm sure he's got a map of it somewhere, or maybe
Yes.
not. So the neat thing is from the pellet plant to where the ore dock is, it's really only like 7 feet because of the bridge or the swing
Yeah.
gate. But because the swing gate doesn't factor into the operations during operating session, you've got to go 80 feet
Oh,
you got to go across the whole railroad to get over to the ore dock,
right.
which makes it really, really, really cool. And that circling back to the question about the continuous run and how that gate will factors into continuous run, that's where that comes in. Because, like you said, when you want to break things in or just run a train while you're doing something, you can't.
Yeah.
There was a question here. Heath, this is a big one, so buckle up. Would you recommend building and tearing down versus spending time using planning software? Why didn't you choose to use paper first, do you think it would have helped you?
Dude, this guy must have peeked into the.
He's got the looking glass, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. So, there's a couple of things, right? So, the first layout, going back to the trial and error for 1 and 2, right? They both started with some sort of sketch or idea, and that I find that track planning software, and sketching it out on paper in terms of a track plan, it's great to get like the concept down, but for whatever reason with me, and it could be different for other people, like it doesn't scale well, right? It never scales well. So
Yeah.
like you may be able to jam another track in, but then you only have like 6 inches of space to have 3 car spots. And because you don't want to foul any switches or anything like that, there's some operating principles that I didn't put on here, but that I want to maintain, right? I don't want to foul switches. I don't want to foul the main line when I'm doing switching. So, having those principles instilled, I kind of ran out of space quickly for what I wanted to do. And so there was a lot of planning that went into it. And even on the 2.0, this was a project that I did over vacation, where I would sit down while Henry and my wife Kristen were still sleeping. I'd get up early on vacation, right, and make a cup of coffee, and I'd sit down at the kitchen table at this Airbnb that we're at or wherever, and I'd bring my colored pencils and start drawing out a track plan and an operations plan, and and started to piece it together. But when you started to actually sit down and build it, you have to have that I'm not good enough to just translate from paper to the model railroad. Before I start building, I kind of have to dry fit the pieces in place to make sure that it's
Yep.
going to work out. So yeah, so I'm not a big. I've used like Extract CAD, or that's a good one to kind of give you the helping of the operations. But I don't know. I'm not a big fan of, and all the haters are going to come at me. I don't like using track planning software. In fact, I really don't, because it gets my hopes up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've used that Extract CAD for my Farland Terminal, but I kept everything in like the quote unquote domino type thing. So everything was 4 feet wide by 18 inches deep. And I did that so I knew where my inch marks were and where I was going to put. Then I went and I translated what I designed in each section onto the layout, and it's working out really, really well up until I get to the sections that I'm at now. Now I'm actually going this route where I'm actually sketching it out. I actually sketched out the industry portion of my railroad on the back of one of my TGBOs from work, on the back of the TGBOs from work,
Yeah.
because I had an idea, and I'm like, oh, I got to have a piece of paper. I'm like, oh, I got this. I'll just use the back of this. And then I had to remember not to throw it away. I had to bring it home. There's another question.
Yeah.
From Chris Holschbach.
Shooter,
our buddy Shooter. What failures are you avoiding from previous layout builds? That's a phenomenal question. That's a fantastic question. Go.
Okay. So I guess there's been a lot of failures in Model Railroad or Mascoutin Valley 1 and 2.0. The first one that I'll talk about is just using substandard materials. When I built the layout before, I used like dimensional lumber, and I still have some of it in here, but it was the lower grade stuff. So there was a lot of warping and all that stuff going on. And so then I used a 1/2 inch. I didn't use cabinet grade plywood or anything like that. So I kind of had um, wavy track work. And yeah, it was frustrating at times because operationally my cars would come uncoupled because there'd be dips and stuff, and so I wanted to make sure that I wanted to use good materials for this first one. The second one was the aisle width. I didn't have enough aisle width in my first layout, and when I had another person down here, there was always that awkward bump in India, and I call it, you have to do the suck it in shuffle, because I've put on, let's be honest, I put on a little weight, right? Around, especially around the midsection.
Right.
And when I'm going past someone in the aisle, it's like, oh, I got to suck it in and, kind of scooch past you and do the suck it in shuffle. And I hate doing that. Or if, you just got the person that kind of awkwardly comes up behind you and rubs on you and then breathes down your neck. I couldn't handle that. So I had to have the wide aisles.
Right.
So yeah, the operators reach around.
That's a good
Yeah.
that's a good name for it.
Yeah. And then I think one of the other things that I didn't do very well was in the previous runs was spacing things out. So as you see on the final track here, yeah, it's probably both. But I think the other thing that I learned about was I didn't have really enough space. Like even just Pine River Junction here, it's only got like 3 or 4 car setouts, but it's 11 feet long, right? And I didn't want to. I jammed way too much track into too small of a space. So I wanted to essentially, with all this space, I mean I could put 6-7 industries in here, but I wanted to spread it out and give that I guess illusion that you're going somewhere.
Yeah. You may have talked about this a little bit. Lowell Pearson, OSB or plywood.
So for sub roadbed, I use 3/4 inch plywood, and
Nice.
I don't use OSB. I did use OSB for the paneling around my utility room, but that's what I use it for.
Yeah. I went with 5-ply 1/2 inch or 3/8. No, 5/8. 5/8, I think it is. 5-ply 5/8 or something like the 1/2 inch that I got from Menards. But mine were 2 foot by 4 foot sections already. I didn't have to buy full sheets.
Right. Yeah. So this is an interesting point. Tom Klomoski, negative space. We've talked about that on previous shows, and Tom's talked about that on our show and in his book, right? Has to be accounted for to make your railroad realistic.
We did almost an entire show just on that river scene alone on his
Mhm.
layout, remember?
Yeah.
And that was that whole negative space type of tie-in to, because his layout's kind of 2 segments, right? You have the yard side and then you have the industrial side, and that river scene on his really ties everything together. The negative space can tie a lot together.
Yeah. Yeah. And so basically one of the other things that I learned as well, because there was and we won't talk about this because I didn't want to bring Luke's Lemon's name up on the show tonight, because there's a bet going on. See how many times.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
Luke Lemons?
It's like Beetlejuice, right?
He's in Florida right now, so I'm not.
Yeah, he probably won't show up. But long story short, we planned a failed attempt at the Chicago Northwestern Marsh Line, and it was going to be a big basement empire and all this, that, there was going to be a helix in it. It was going to be amazing, right? But I think the big thing about that is that I tried to build the whole layout all at once, and that's where I failed. And so another one of the things that I failed on that I didn't want to fail on with this layout was I built it in bites, and I designed it in bites. I'm essentially built and designed it like a series of shelf layouts. And so that's how I'm kind of keeping my interest going in the railroad. Is I don't have it all built yet. I got a good portion of it, and I do have a continuous run in, but I am putting an expansion in. And when I designed it so that each area could be its own little shelf layout.
Hey, one more real quick question from Shooter again, Chris Holzbach.
Yeah.
What is negative space? And Heath from Humanity Junction, I think, spells it out pretty good right here. It's basically space where there is nothing in it. Well, that's true, but not true. There's negative space, in my opinion, is area of your layout that doesn't necessarily have any more trackage in it than maybe a main line, and but yet it has scenic value, and that scenic value ties the portions of your layout together. Does that make sense, or is that too general, or even close to what do you think, Andy?
I think it's just the I guess the spaces between places, right? Is how I would articulate it. So basically, like for example, I'll just shoot ahead here to like the track plan, right?
Yeah.
So this area right here, going around the utility room, it's a run of about 20 feet, and all it's going to be is trees, right?
Yeah, just going through the woods.
You're basically just going through the woods at this point here. So it's really, how I would describe it as space between the different places.
Yeah, and Tom Klomoski here. It's ordinary areas that don't have much to see.
Yeah,
it can be empty lots, a grove of trees, or a non-rail served buildings. That's that.
exactly.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's essential. I think it's essential to have that on any type of railroad that you have. So a little bit of it can do a lot. You don't need miles worth of it. Just a little bit of that separation can do a lot for setting the tone of how even modules are set up.
Yep. Yeah, and I think for me, like when I was putting all this together, like everyone, like we always kind of harken back to, this is the second time I use that word, in harken in the show.
Harken.
Is
Did
that
you
we're
hear
all
that
kinda-
recently?
No, I didn't. But maybe it's parallel to Christmas or whatever. But anyways, long story short, we're all artists, right? And we all kind of see things from our own perspective. And and I am going to use Luke's name again here. That's the second time. Third time he's going to show up. I just know it. But Luke did a really good exercise for me to essentially figure out, like, what do I like, right? That's another thing along this journey. You have to figure out, what do you like? That's going to hold your interest. Do you like the small, high detailed stuff? Do you like taking trains from spot to spot, over a long run? And one of the things that I'll vividly remember was Luke took me to 3 different layouts. He took me to his own layout, and we walked around it, and it's a big, huge double deck layout, and there's a lot of stops on it, and there's space between stops. Then we went to Jim Elby's layout, which it is operations all the time, and everything is
phenomenally fun railroad.
Yeah, it's a fun layout to run, but everything is really close together.
Yes.
And then he took me to Dennis Eggert's house, and his model railroad, has vast space between all of these different locations. And
I would dare to say it's a minimalistic layout.
Yes. Yeah. And I really latched on to that, right? like Ansel Adams, right? Black and white and shadow and light.
Yep. Yep.
Like, so some people like that and some people hate that. And so it's, I think it was kind of like, oh, that's what I really like. So that's what I want to emulate. And that was a big factor in my design, was to be able to have that big pieces of negative space.
There's a question from Joe Bohannon. On your drawings of your layout, did you do everything freehand or use a template? I think you can kind of see right here. This is pretty much freehand right there, I think.
Most of the stuff was done freehand, because I think from my key learnings, paper is not reality, right? Your track plan's really not reality, and the bigger curves I did use a scale and a compass to draw the arcs and stuff like that. So I did use my old high school geometry teachings to bring in some arcs, but that was on the bigger stuff. In the yards and stuff, it's all kind of a crapshoot in my opinion.
Yeah,
you just want the one of the other things that I do is, the track work's got to flow, right? And so I'll look down the rail, and just something, when you look at it, the curve sweeps out. You can't really account for that on a drawing or on a computer aided design sheet. So
yeah,
that's my opinion. I'm sure other people are like, oh, it's the only way, but yeah, that's fine. So again, step by step, break it down. And then essentially, don't be afraid to make changes. And I absolutely, just like making sawdust. So for me, tearing it down and starting fresh was, and this is a good point here from Tom Klomoski. It's a guide, right?
Yeah.
So,
And you'll know when you start putting track down before you do even a little bit of scenery, if you've got that right.
Yep.
You'll know if it feels good,
Right. So this is the what the track plan is now. And this is what the layout is now. So my layout is roughly, I think it's about 45 feet long by, let's just say 20-ish feet wide. So I have
That's a good space.
I have a really decent space. And so the studio, if you guys are all curious, is right here in Pine River Junction. So this is where I'm sitting right now.
You should put a little U right there. This is where Bernard could be handy. Put a little mini U in there.
Right. And then so then the ore yard over here is, and the ore dock, this is Menominee, Michigan, right? So my staging, and I just settled on this recently because I was really worried that I kind of effed up everything here. But my staging is a fiddle track right here in the yard.
Perfect.
And that is, if we go back to the system map, that is the train that comes up to Menominee from other parts of the system. So this could be full of bentonite or paper pulp or chemicals for the paper plant or logs or wood chips or whatever, or even grain cars that are coming in, and they're all staged there. And then from there, the operation is there'll be a local that comes out, and we'll actually have to go all the way around. There's some non-ore related tracks at the pellet plant for soda and bentonite and acid. And then they also have to come all the way to Pine River Junction. So when you start out, you go from one end of the railroad to the other and then back.
Here's a question. Can I answer this question for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Does that 20-foot run feel like too much negative space to you, Andy? I'm going to answer that because I know the area that he's modeling, and the type of area that he's modeling. And I have been up on the Lake Superior and Ishpeming. I've been up on the Menominee Range where the pellet plant is based off of and all these things. No, 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 it's not, because there's a lot of nothing up there. You'll go 20 miles and not see anything but trees. And so there's a lot of distance between actual physical points. And so it really isn't going to take that as long as what you think to go through all of that. It just the way I look at it is this is going to be a great reset for your head, because you've just got done leaving the ore plant. Okay, let's imagine this now. You just got done leaving the pellet plant. The hustle and the bustle, you got it on your train, you got everything, you're squared away, you're thinking of this and this and this. You've got to get your mind for your first, like with a layout expansion, he'll get to this. You're still going to be working with a job that's out in that neck of the woods. And all of a sudden you get through that layout expansion area and you're going to be able to just sit there and go, okay, here's what I've got for my train. So now that whole 20-foot section that winds through the rest of that before you get into the ore yard gives you time to reset your brain and get yourself all squared away with what you're going to need to do when you get to the ore yard, because that's going to be a whole nother thought process. So it really is going to give you an opportunity as an operator to kind of check out, take a deep breath, and just enjoy running a train. And that's I mean, to me, that's the way I look at that. So I think that's going to be like the perfect amount of negative space for what is all going on with the rest of this layout. I think it's, sorry, but that's my opinion. But
And you kind of nailed it, right? So the pellet plant, and when I had my open house for the NMRA division meet here in October, I had Jason down, and he was running the trains, and just kind of getting it back and forth, and doing the pellet plant here. So essentially you come into the plant, run around, pull half your train out, and essentially switch out the feeder tracks here. It took him quite a while to do that. Plus he's got to and run back around the train, get ready to depart. And by the time you do all of that, hullabaloo, now it's just time to, okay, I get my orders from the dispatch, I can come back to the yard, and away we go.
yeah, and then you have the time to be able to, now you're getting all that all squared away. Now all you have to do is worry about running the train to the ore yard. Right. And
Yep.
now you have time to just relax and enjoy it. Having done something like not done something like this, having done this exact thing, not with ore trains, but with freight trains, you leave the yard in Green Bay. You have your period of time between Green Bay and Marinette. At Marinette, you're gonna have to set out and pick up and do certain things, and you've got work to do. You have to think about how you're going to be doing things, and you're thinking about that while you're running the train the rest of the way. The quote unquote realistic negative space between one town to a next. Well, then you get done doing that work. Now you've got another 80 miles to go or 60 miles to go to get to the next place you're going to do work. And now you have time to relax and start thinking about how you're going to do that. So I think it's a really good idea to have quite a bit of negative space in there.
Yeah.
If you can do it, if it allows you to do it. just because
Yeah.
it resets your brain, and that's to me that's kind of important. I need those resets.
Yeah. And and it's fun to, to do that and just have that reset and look at scenery. So yeah, and like I said, it kind of proved itself out. And again, if you went back to my, needs and wants, right? I want to have be able to have a crew of one, so I can come down and run a train by myself, or up to about 5 people. So the jobs on the layout, and I'll progress it here to where we're going, so that we're moving to. So we've gotten rid of this awkward bit here in the middle, and I've taken over this other back room, and this is where the paper mill is going to go.
Yeah.
And so basically the pellet plant, the ore dock, and all that stuff is still there. And you can kind of see this around the utility room area here is nice, because you're going to have operators kind of leaking out from the ore dock and the yard room. You're going to have people at the pellet plant. So I don't really want people congregating around this peninsula if I can help it. And then I'm going to have an operator back here in the layout expansion by the paper mill, or the crew lounge is in here too, right?
Right.
So this is the final adaptation of the track plan. And the jobs that I'm going to be running are, there's going to be there'll be the ore dock, or the ore yard job, which will not only push um, up to the dock and back, empties and loads, but you're going to be going up a 3% grade to get up over the over the yard enough, so you can get up high enough to load the ships, right?
Yeah.
So that this whole lead is almost like a big incline that I have. And then you're going to have the one local that basically the Pine River turn, where you're going to go out and drop off cars um, for the paper mill. You're going to take care of the bentonite, acid, and equipment tracks for the pellet plant, and then you're going to do Pine River Junction, and then you'll have your ore pool, which is going to be running mainline trains back and forth between the ore yard and the iron ore pellet plant. And then finally, you're going to have the paper mill job, which we're going to probably put the Wisconsin Midwestern switcher in there to run that job permanently.
On lease. It's on
Yes,
lease.
on lease. And then I have the plan is to have like a 2.5 to 3% grade down, similar to what it is at Niagara, Wisconsin, and then have a switchback to. So yes, Tom Klomoski, I'm putting in a switchback.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at that, Tom. He worked in his switchback. Where's your
Much like
switchback on your layout, Tom?
Yeah.
He's
But-
never gonna live that down.
Yeah. But no, I'm just
Honestly,
joking, Tom.
it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yep. And then, like I said, this is there's going to be some really cool scenic elements that are going to be in here. There's going to be a huge bridge in here. So when you come down the stairs, you see this giant 51-inch bridge, right here when you come into the layout. So yeah, so basically that's how, at least from the beginning of how I'm thinking of putting it together, and then how I designed it. When I first started out, this was the room I was starting in, was here, right? And then I made a deal with the wife to expand past and just basically claim the whole basement. And so this is what I've finally decided on. I have 3/4 of it built. I'm finishing this room now with drywall. And then we'll be building the bench work here in the next couple of weeks. So, I did not intend to talk that long.
Nothing wrong with that.
Sorry, Mike.
Why? For what? What are you so sorry for?
So, yeah. So, So yep, Tom never should have told us about the switchback.
Yeah, I
Never.
know. That was the big mistake Tom made, was showing the pictures of it, or that video or whatever it was that they showed that one time. I'm sitting there going, you got to put that in. You got to get that in, So, yeah, how much of the layout is finished? You're looking at it, I think, right?
Yeah. So basic. Well, none of the spots are actually finished yet. So, Pine River Junction has the scenery in for most of it. So it's basically, think of a shelf layout that's about 15 inches deep by 14 inches or 14 feet long. That's what we would consider done. And then the rest of the track, most of the track is in, excluding the expansion. So the yard is in place. I got the lead in, the ore dock is in place, and then basically the main line is all in place as well. So it's time to get moving. So another question here from Tim Moran. Are you running single person crews due to the space for operators? Yeah, I think I'd probably, the max I could handle is 5, maybe 6, and go on from there. So, are we going to talk about Mike's layout for 2 hours?
No.
So,
No. I can talk about mine in real short order.
yeah. Yeah. So thanks everyone for the I guess the attention on that and the good questions.
Oh, hey, is it time for a tour of the layout?
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, I can certainly put together a layout tour for the section crew here, so you guys can get a good idea of what the plan looks like and how it's been put in motion.
Nice. I'm not that fancy.
No.
No, I'm not that fancy. I don't have a whole lot of fancy. I need at least 3 hours of S scale tonight. Listen. Well, you're about to get about 20 minutes, so I'll pack 3 hours into 20 minutes ish. So, going off of basically what Andy was saying about your wants versus needs, we have absolutely opposite thought processes when it comes to that. Yeah, not that fancy as I'm sipping a cup. It says Farland Terminal on it. These are I got this at my friend Mike Arnold over at Bespoke Rail made that for me.
Yeah.
Yep. So okay, so I have always been a Milwaukee Road fan. I've always liked the Milwaukee Road, and so that's where the problem started. And just real quickly, I worked for a short line. I worked for a Green Bay and Western. I like that. I like too many things. Okay, I like too many things to pigeonhole myself into. I'm going to do this, and not only that, but I didn't feel as if when I changed over to S scale from HO that I could do it justice. And so I thought, what can I do that is within the realm of the scale that I have, that I can teach myself and learn from others new techniques and new ways of doing things to make a railroad look viable in the space that I have. Now, my room space is about 11 by 30, and it's basically a rectangle. I don't have any odd doodads like Andy does.
You have a normal house.
I do not have a normal house. What's not to love about the Milwaukee Road? There is nothing to not love about the Milwaukee Road. It's an amazing railroad. That's the issue. Is there's too much. There's too much about it. Anyway, we'll get into that in a topic and a show some other time. But I have always been, ever since I became a locomotive engineer, I fell in love with switch engines. I just absolutely love end cab switch engines, and especially the SW1200s. I use the WCs 1231 through 1236, I believe it was. I ran them all. They rode horrible. They were just lumber wagons, but they did the job and they could pull anything you asked them to. And they were just workhorses. And I thought, you know what? I was still an HO at the time. So I was like, I'm going to create my Wisconsin and Midwestern. I have had that ever since I've been 16 years old. Never really did a whole lot with it, blah, blah, blah. And so I came up with a paint scheme for my MP15 AC. Now, I need new handrails for this one. But my railroad does not have a super fancy paint scheme like a lot of short line railroads would. I kind of took a page out of the Southern Pacific's book with doing just minimalistic. I wanted chevrons and I wanted a simple paint scheme. So I went with, I think this is L&N gray and Santa Fe blue or something along those lines. So I love the MP15 AC also. But I ran switch engine, SW1500s. I ran SW1200s. Just love switch engines. When I made the decision to go over to S scale, they had an SW1200, and I thought, oh, I'm going to get one of those. And I really couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it, but I knew I wanted it to be small. I didn't want this enormous railroad that took up miles and miles and miles for one simple reason. Luke Lemons.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is because I helped him a lot, him and Dan Dyer, believe it or not. Help those guys build their layout as the years have been. And it's over 20 years with, Luke's layout. And no, number one, I don't want that many people. I don't want to have to deal with that many people at my house in the space that I have.
Yeah.
And number two, that's just a lot. I see the issues that a lot of people behind the scenes don't see with what Luke's layout. A lot of people just see this really well running thing. What you don't see are the 2-hour phone calls trying to diagnose a short someplace that has got the whole railroad basically crippled, or overheating of computer elements, or it's just a lot. So I decided I wanted something small. I wanted a crappy little short line 10-mile railroad that was basically not on its last legs. It served a purpose, but it wasn't exactly 50-mile-an-hour high-speed rail.
Right.
Weed covered. I wanted the opposite of the Class 1. And so that's where the Farland Terminal came. And I live on Farland Avenue, by the way. So that's where the word Farland comes from. Literally, that's the reason. Nothing else. That's it. It's just a road I live on. So I came up with, scrappy and frugal. So one of the quick, very Milwaukee Road. But you've all seen, for those of you that have not been to, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to screw this up so bad, Andy.
Do a good job, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to screw this up so bad. So one of the things I did was I started to yeah, see, it won't let me share these because they're not in a thing. What? How can I do that? Huh.
Hmm.
No, it won't let me. I can't get my computer things up to
Oh.
show. Well, anyway, you can see here on this picture here, you can see where I used the extract CAD
Yep.
for designing this is section 1. I wanted an interchange. I wanted an actual interchange. So the original iteration of this, I was using 11-inch wide press board shelving, and I got all the track down. I got everything all squared away, running the whole 9 yards, and I ended up going, there is nowhere for me to put any kind of scenery on this, and it's gonna, if I try, it's gonna look like crap. So I really wanted to change things up and make it look a lot better than what the first version of the railroad was. So I came up with a new interchange idea, and part of that is having a diamond. And the railroad that goes from the wall to the aisle, this section right here, that has changed hands about 12 times now. I still to this day have not settled on who I'm interchanging with.
Railroad B.
It's Railroad B. Yeah. But all I did was, let's see if I
Yeah.
can, it's just basic. I cut the plywood out. This this portion of the interchange was a single piece, and then this portion with the diamond on it is all one piece. I cut this all out as one piece,
Mhm.
laid it down, and I have risers underneath these. So that
Yeah.
way this is raised up compared to, and then I just took the rest of these pieces and put them back in place
Sure.
down and screwed them down onto the rest of the boards. Now, for those of you that are wondering, this was actually the way I actually tried to figure out how it would kind of look.
Yeah.
I took some pieces of flex track, or what was left of the flex track, but I'm using these shelf brackets because these are left over and were already in the wall from my old layout. So I just notched the back and laid a piece horizontal and then screwed to that, and then went with can't remember what exactly I used. I think I went 16 on center as best I could. It's not quite 16, I think, in some place. I think these two on the ends are 16 and this is more like 12. But I just went ahead and did that and started creating section 1. And here it is with the plywood put back in place. Well, now this allowed me, and here you can see the little stringers. I think these are 1/2 inch, so it's a little higher. And matter of fact, I changed this. I made these shorter. I'm more narrow. So this was
Yeah.
not so high because I thought here again, like Tom said, you'll know when you start doing something, right? I looked at this and I'm like, this does not look good. This is too high. The main
Yeah.
line and all this stuff was too high. And I ended up lowering it, and it ended up looking a lot better. So one of the things that I tried to do is, I'm not sure if I have section 2 in here. Oh, I played around a little bit with a valance just to see
Balance.
what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Here is section 2 from the extract CAD. Now that connected, if you look, that connects directly with here on section 1. So here's section 1. And then I use the same 18-inch by 4-foot template, and then the measuring things to go to right here to
The next
create
section.
the next section.
Yeah.
And this is where my short little runaround is going to be, and the connection of the interchange. Now, you might ask why I put this switch here, because that's where the open space is.
Hmm.
So yeah, I could have moved this down a little bit. I could have moved it to about here. There's another section of open space, but it's okay right here because I don't plan on running trains much more than three to four cars in the first place. So my interchange will hold 4 cars. And that's all that my railroad will do. It will use. And here I have sections 1 and 2 framed up, and you can see how I have it notched
for those brackets.
And I did both of these sections away from the like I built them separately and placed them in like I set them in place. From section 3 on, I built them in place, which I found to be a lot easier. Now, if you look, I have pocket screws here.
Yep.
And you know, Craig jig and a pocket screws. I'll never build a layout ever again. Thanks, Andy, for without ever doing any of this stuff with pocket screws.
Is the way to go.
That is absolutely the way to go.
Death to L girder bench work.
Right, but I mean, it's I found it easy to keep things level. I found it easy to keep things going the way I wanted them. Eventually, this is how things. And here you can see I use a little bit more narrow, but of a stringer. But here you have where the switches are, and here you can see I can fit 4 cars on my interchange. And so this was sections 1 and 2 ready to get track put down on and ties put down. And what I did here is I screwed the sub road bed in from the bottom through the stringers. I actually countersunk I drilled countersunk pilot holes along here, along the stringers. And then I screwed the sub road bed down from underneath. The reason I did that is because now I don't have to cover up any screw holes of any sort. And if I need to do something, I can have direct access to it from underneath. And I don't have to worry about ripping off scenery or anything else like that. If I had to do something with this entire... thanks. If I had to do something with this whole section, each section has joints right at the seam. So if I needed to, I can actually take this entire section, remove it from the layout, take it someplace, bring it back, put it back in, and just have to put track connectors back in and make it work. Each section actually has wiring that's autonomous to itself. So I literally building modules as I go.
That's another thing to think about is, like, I know you had talked about potentially moving or, you know, at some point and whatever, you know, we talk about this at work a lot, design with the end in mind, right?
Yes.
So that's a thing that we pass around at work a lot, right? Design for maintenance. And I think that's another really good concept that you've applied here, Mike, is you've designed it to be maintainable. You've designed it to be movable, and reusable in some states.
Yeah, and here, like, thanks. I've tried to take some lessons from basically everybody that you know, especially, believe it or not, lessons from myself.
Yeah.
My original Farland Terminal layout, when I had it on that press board shelving, the temperature changes in the state of Wisconsin wreaked havoc on the track. Why? Because I was not smart enough to actually go through with putting the track down properly. I basically had it tack spiked in and gauged every 4 inches. Well, that's all well and good as long as you live someplace where you're not going to have to deal with but the room isn't climate controlled, right?
Right.
So, you know, now this time it's every 3 ties has a set of spikes in it. So the track's not going anywhere. The switches, you can see I hand laid my switches. The whole layout's hand laid, by the way. There's There will not be a stick of manufactured track on it. It's all going to be. I'm using Micro Engineering Code 83 for everything.
For the
and
rail.
For the rail. Yeah, for the rail. And that's because it's readily available, and it basically comes out the 90-pound rail in S. So, it's good enough. It'll do the job. I want reliable track work.
Right.
So, and here you can see I'm playing around with
I like this picture.
I do too.
Well, it looks cool. Like it looks like it's a railroad that it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things where when I got to this point right here, I actually really stopped and thought, you know what, this is a thing now. Okay, now how do I want to do the rest of this to make this not look like crap? Because I don't want these two sections to look real good and then have the rest of the layout look like I phoned it in, right? And so I really took some time to think about it, and I played around with a valance right here. See, yeah, and actually this valance here in the future, I haven't gone any more with it, because the one thing I learned from this is I built this before I laid track. Yeah, bad idea for the back of your head. So
yeah, and if you're bald,
yeah,
you're gonna have scrape marks.
Yeah, you got, so if you're thinking about building a single deck layout like mine and you want to have a valance, awesome, good idea. Go for it. Do it after you get the layout put up. Do it after at least the track work is in. You can mess around with scenery under a valance, but wait until you get the track work done, because you'll thank yourself for doing that. But I really wanted the next couple of sections to reflect what they were supposed to be. So here is the other end of that siding. And I don't know if many of you have seen it in the past, but I scratch built a bridge that was going to go over a creek on my original layout. And I wanted to reuse that bridge. So I came up with another section. Section 4 has the bridge scene in it. Negative space. Well, I needed a tie-in between the two halves of my railroad, because in reality, this is the end of the first half. The interchange and the run around the interchange and the diamond, that is one part of the railroad. That's the end. That's one end. Now I need the negative space aspect, which is this river scene, and the next section, section 5, which has a grade crossing scene in it. So now you have 2 negative space, 8 feet worth of negative space to divide up the two halves of the railroad.
Sure.
And when it all came,
here, close your chat window there.
Oh, this chat window.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right.
So when it all started to come to fruition, see if I can find a relatively decent let's see if this one, here, it's not the greatest photo, but here's the river scene flowing directly into flowing. Yeah, get it? But here's and I do not have track past the bridge here yet. I haven't got that far, because there's only, I believe, 5.5 or 6 inches from the end of this bridge to the end of the next deck. But I really wanted to make this, because when you walk into the room, this is literally the scene you're staring at directly in front of you. Before you see anything to your left or to the right, this is directly in front of you. So this is the signature scene as you walking into the room.
Yeah.
And
the jaw dropper.
Yeah. So and as you can see, I do have it designed with a little bit of an S curve in here, and that's kind of another element where I needed to change angles, because I didn't want just a railroad that was straight and parallel to the edge of the track. I wanted it to flow kind of like it's actually flowing through the topography of where it's supposed to be. And it does also help. I had a little bit of help with this from my S-scale friend Robert Frischella, who was a retired railroad design civil engineer. He designed some Amtrak terminals and industrial locations around the country. So so his input on this was really, really helpful, and it really helped to make the lines and the angles realistic looking.
So I'm going to ask you some of the same questions that I was asked. So
Yeah.
this is what rendition of the Farland Terminal is this? This isn't the first go round, right?
No, this is rendition 27.925B.
Ooh, okay. But I mean,
In reality, this is like 3.0.
yeah. So what were, like, how do you feel about this one versus your other ones?
So far, I'm really liking this one. It's very relaxing. I know. Look, I mean, tell me somebody who's not building a layout whose layout doesn't look like a dumpster fire. Actually,
Well, it just looks like a shelf to put stuff on, right? That's exactly what they are.
That's exactly what it is, right? So, but so far, I don't have many regrets. I have an operations plan already set in place for the way I want the railroad to operate. With that being said, I wish I would have made the interchange an extra foot longer.
Okay.
However, had I done that, this whole area right here would have looked out of place. It wouldn't have looked as the way it and turned out the way it is. It would have just not looked right. And that's I was using a railroad eye at that time, where I'm sitting here thinking, okay, you've seen this 1,000 times, Mike. Just put it on a piece of paper and figure it out. You go through these things all the time. So yeah, I am really liking this rendition so far. I don't feel the pressure with this one that I've felt with ones in the past.
That's good.
Because I really am just taking my time to make sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed, to make sure the track is not necessarily running flawlessly, but is derailment free. Electrical glitches are going to happen, and I'm starting to find a couple that I think I can overcome if I add a keep alive to my locomotive.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm not powering my frogs at all. They're dead. So it's because they're kind of a nightmare. But that's my problem, not anybody else's. But it's so wiring this, you could see I'm at the stage now where I started dropping feeders. Well, I took like address labels and I put a W because I'm using white and red. So I put a W on the for where I wanted white wires to go, and red, so that where the red ones were supposed to go, so I didn't miss something and create a short because of the fact that I forgot to put a wire in. So I really took the time to make sure that all of the track would, like, especially the switches, were wired properly. And right now I'm actually right here where these are. That'll be the next set. I got these all down already. And I am not good at soldering wire. I don't like the way soldering wire looks on the side of the track, because I do mine on the side, and I'm probably using way too big of a gauge. I know, guys, isn't it kind of the new thing to do it from underneath?
Yeah, I do it from I solder to the bottom of the rail.
Yeah, well, I don't have that luxury with building these switches in place.
Sure.
I didn't think of that also.
Yeah, but I mean, static grass will hide it just fine.
Oh my goodness, you're not going to see any of it. I mean, that's just the way it is. You literally will not see it. But I've really taken the time to make sure that I have um, the wiring is really important to me to make sure that I have all of that squared away. There's a disaster in the make. That's a different show for altogether. That's not even there anymore.
Show organization.
Yeah, show organization. But I've actually went
Or
through
shop
and
organization, not
yeah,
show.
shop. But I'm actually using the Bullfrog switch machines. And the reason I'm using these is because I have 8 of them already on hand, and I'm too cheap to go buy new blue points because my blue points, a lot of them broke when I went to change everything out. So I thought, well, I'm going to use these. And in the future, if something happens with one of these, I'll go get a blue point. That's
There
fine.
you go.
But these are just kits all onto themselves. So I mean, I've even got some fascia down.
I was gonna say you put
Uh,
some fascia on now. I mean, it's definitely
yeah,
coming along.
yeah, and I've believe it or not, my little my my connector strips here.
Yeah,
Uh, I bought these, and then I found a bunch of them in the rafters at the house. And that's the way
good for
that
you.
goes. Yeah,
Yep.
so I have a top cap and a bottom cap now for that. So I have those all set and ready to go. But I mean, for the most part, the designing and the setup of the railroad is exactly what you just saw.
Yeah.
That right there is it encompasses 16 of the 30 feet of the railroad
Wow.
is just those 4 sections. And it's all it is a runaround and interchange, a fake diamond to which is controlled by Iowa Scale Engineering's uh, interlocking in a box.
Mr.
Hashtag not
Interlocking.
sponsored. Yeah, Mr. Interlocking. And then the bridge scene. And
Yeah.
now the next section is where we get into the crossing stuff. And this is where I'm actually really I'm going to try doing this again. Somebody asked me about early in the show, somebody asked about designing large industry. And we
Yes.
saw how Andy designed his his pellet plant and the ore dock and the paper mill and all of that kind of happy stuff.
Right.
So here is the purpose. And Andy, you and I just talked about this 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
and
struggled.
today.
I struggled with trying to find a purpose for the Farland Terminal, and that was believable. And here here's the purpose behind it. It's going to be called Wisconsin. Look at how I spelled Wisconsin. Good
Yeah.
Lord.
Wisconsin.
Ooh, hey, maybe I'll just keep that.
Yeah, good old Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, good old
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Good old Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's going to end up being Wisconsin Feed and Supply. Okay.
Nice.
So Andy, in his more youthful days, used to worked at a co-op. So
Yeah.
I'm picking his brain as to whether or not this would be a feasible layout for a higher end type feed and supply feed mill. So you're going to end up with because one of the problems is I have a lot of 40-foot cars, and if I model 1992, which I would love to do, I would really love to model 1992. That is really kind of my wheelhouse era. I just want to, but for a lot of reasons. Mainly the reason is because that's the year I started working on a Green Bay and Western, and I have a lot of memories as to how things went and what was going on with that. So, but right now it's 79 to 81. And boxcars still hauled in 79 to 81. There's still a lot of 40-foot boxcars around. So they were being phased out during this time period, but you saw them everywhere. They were still around. By 1992, they were pretty much all gone. A handful of them were still running around on the Burlington Northern, I think in lumber service, but that was about it. So for the most part, I wanted to make sure I had a place to build my 40-foot boxcar fleet. Now, so I thought, well, I know bagged salt always came on the Milwaukee Road down
Yep.
in Chilton at one of the mills down there. So boxcars of bagged salt are going to go to this mill. On that same track, because I don't have a lot of space, I'm not going to be running unit trains. I'm running like 0 to 4 cars at a time. And there's no runaround out here. You're shoving from that stuff we just saw. You're shoving out here.
Right.
Just like we do out to Rockwood, Wisconsin from Manitowoc. We shove out there. So it's 7 miles. So that's the same concept. I'm taking a real life situation that I'm familiar with and I'm utilizing it on my layout. So the outbound section is going to be feed. This is going to be right up against the feed or the elevator section of the feed mill. Inbound grains are going to be here on a leg that are going to feed into these areas to get milled, et cetera, et cetera. Behind that is going to be a car for an elevator, underground elevator dump, and then the leg will be like over here by the building to go into the building to be sorted for fertilizer. And then, yeah, kind of like O'Connell Falls does that.
Yeah.
Now I would really, I really dig the way the one in Brandon is set up.
Yeah.
I love the way the one in Brandon is set up. I just don't know if I have. My whole problem is I don't want
a spur.
I don't want to face the back of a structure to face the aisle.
Yeah, that's another design consideration, right? You
Right.
want to look into, the layout. So especially with the shelf layout, it takes a lot of real estate up front.
Right. So, I mean, because the one in Brandon, Wisconsin has got this really cool deal where it's actually sorted from the track and it goes over 2 conveyors to get into the building. And then they sort in these bins inside this, it's really sharp. I have some pictures of it somewhere.
Yeah, it's a podunk,
yeah, it's
podunk grain facility. It's,
yeah. So this is kind of a more modern take on it. It's an early version of the modern way that they do it in modern times. But there's a lot of these structures that were built in the early 80s all the way through the 90s that are designed to do this for fertilizer. And then over here, I thought I'll have a track for LPG or anhydrous ammonia, because those are things that feed mills and co-ops, it's a feed and supply. It's farmer supply. So that stuff, anhydrous ammonia and LPG are things that farmers use.
I mean, I remember, as a kid hauling nurse tanks, with anhydrous behind it. And, my dad worked at FS in Rosendale, Wisconsin at the time. And they would get, C&W would bring in big LP, cars full of anhydrous. And then, they'd fill up all their nurse tanks, and because they would take that anhydrous ammonia. At around here in Wisconsin, we always put it in the ground before they planted the corn.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's always interesting. Or you could put it in like after it got to canopy, but yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're going to be shoving in here and having to switch this whole thing out. You're going to have a caboose to deal with. You're going to have a handful of cars. You need space. These tracks, each one of these, this whole structure is going to be approximately, I'm going to say about 6 to 6.5 feet long. So there's a lot of room here.
Yeah.
This isn't like this is just all going to be in a real small confined space. Again, this was sketched out while I was sitting on an engine on the back of my TGBOs because I had the idea and I wanted to get it down on paper before I forgot what I was thinking about.
Yep.
So, you know, that's where uh, having a railroad, creating the purpose of the railroad to me is vital because it is it's a short line railroad, a really short line railroad. Excuse me. So how many operators for Mike's operation plan? Okay. The way I look at the way operations are going to go on my layout is it should take you approximately 45 minutes to an hour to do the whole thing from the time you fire the engine up to the time you go, and you're going to have the engine and a caboose sitting right there. The caboose is going to be handy, but you're going to have to make up your train, run around it, and then shove. You're going to have to stop to quote unquote flag the crossing because the crossing is old and beat up and everything. So the start circuit is short. So you can't just blast through it. It's the start circuit. So you're going to have to stop at the start this crossing, go across the crossing, all that stuff. And then you go and do the switch. I have my engine set so that it does not go over more than 10 scale miles an hour. So you can't whip yourself all the way through. So I figured that what's going to happen is you're going to go and take the half hour or the 45 minutes to an hour to do the whole switch with an engineer and a conductor. I'm using proto throttle. So there's going to be a conductor. There's going to be an engineer. At least in my mind, I would like it. And that would be 2 guys. But if there were 2 other guys sitting there, I'd be staging their work so that when the first 2 guys got done, the next 2 guys went to work and did their stuff. Now I'll have entertainment like videos and other things.
Miller time.
Miller, yeah, we're gonna be
having a couple of barley pops.
So I have some ideas. I figure an entire session should take about 2 hours, and that's for doing a couple of them. But you're going to be able to go and we can run as many sessions as we want.
Yep.
It's only some, and I'm going to be using. Oh boy, I just had his name on. Oh man, his system, his operation system.
Matt Forkham's.
Yes. Yeah, I'm using Ops Buddy. I'm going to be using that, which is a randomizing operations system. So you plug in. This is the great part. We got to get him on to just.
Yeah, we need to
do
have
that
Matt on the show.
I am like jonesing to get my meat hooks into this. So you create the scenarios, and then you create the optimizing parameters, and then you roll a dice, and whatever that dice comes up coincides with the number, whatever that number says it is, that's what you do. So if I roll a 4, then I roll a 4, and if 4 says no switch, I don't switch. That. I'm also going to have a team track that's going to get some random stuff like lumber and other goodies.
Just rando team track.
Random. It'll hold like 2 cars, maybe 3 total, probably closer to 2. But
here's the video.
Matt's
channel.
Yeah, Matt's channel. Yeah, watch that. Download it. It's awesome. Get it.
Can't download it. It's on YouTube.
Oh, that's right.
Download Ops Buddy.
Ops Buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, get Ops Buddy if you can. If it's something you're interested in. It takes a little time to get used to doing it, but it's awesome. It's really, really, really. Oh, hi, Matt. So yeah, that's the Farland Terminal right now. I'm working with to hashtag not sponsored. I'm working with Kevin Tully on a few pieces of equipment that I'm going to want for the feed mill, and some other pieces that I'm planning on having on the layout, scenic wise, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think I'm looking forward to it because everybody wants, and sorry, Andy, but you don't see a lot of guys who are only modeling the one engine and 5-car railroads. You just don't. And
Right.
if I can be known for something, I want to be known as the guy that is the champion for the short lines,
I mean, it's fitting too. I mean, look at the segment that you basically, created here on the show, the short line of the show, right? I mean,
right.
there's an obvious passion to this type of railroad, and this falls right into the absolute need column for you. You need this.
I need to have a short railroad.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I got grandbabies coming within the next 4 weeks. So I've got to get something going because, we got to have Grandpa's the guys that's got trains. We got to go to Grandpa's house.
Grandpa's train room.
Grandpa's train room. I want that. Oh, is there a short line of the show? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. We're working.
We're still working on that.
Yeah, we're working on that. I've had a very stressful, very busy last 2 months. So, anyway, yeah, that's the Farland Terminal as it sits right now.
Yeah. So to kind of close out the segment here.
Yeah.
There's a question from Heath. Thank you, Heath, for all the great, I guess, dialogue this evening. So, question for both Mike and Andy. In the process of building and taking down and then building and taking down your layout, did you ever think about just giving up the hobby altogether?
Every day.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's
really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I was tearing that down, I was sitting there going, what in the hell am I doing? Why can't I just be like everybody else and go hunt and fish and do all this other kind of stuff? Why do I got to relegate myself to doing this? And then I grab 1x4s and I make all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is the reason why,
Yeah.
And it really,
you did answer that pretty quick. Like that one.
Oh yeah. I look at this stuff a lot of times and I sit there and I go, why I'll go downstairs and I'll look at it. I'm like, I really just don't want to do any of this right now. But I need to get, okay, if I just sit down and do this one little thing, and then the next thing you know, I've been working on something for 3.5 hours and I'm just sitting there going, oh, wow, look what I accomplished. This is really, really kind of neat. So, yeah, I do think about that quite a bit, but will it ever happen? Yeah, when they close the lid, that's when close the lid, that's when it's going to stop.
When you get your mail from a gopher, that's when it'll stop.
Yeah. When the mail comes from the gopher, it's time to stop. It's I have too much of a passion and a life history with railroads.
Sure.
To just say I don't want to model. Now, could I see myself not modeling but still rail fanning? Absolutely. I could see myself doing that. Maybe. Or modeling, even going down further than what I am. Will I be an S skill my entire life? There's a possibility I might go back to HO at one point. And if I do, well, the Farland Terminal becomes the next version of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's for a different time, but for now, I'm loving what I'm doing right now. This is awesome.
Yeah. I don't think I ever wanted to give up. I always looked at it like the failure was not the end. but it was more of a point for me to learn to push forward to try and get what I wanted, right? So I would tear down and then I would rebuild and get a little bit closer to what was on my need list, right? And then
Yeah.
I didn't really like it. So then I started over and tear down, and then I would get a little closer. This one, I think I said something to Mike maybe about a year ago. This one stuck for an awful long time. And look at that. There's Beetlejuice. So
Where? Oh, look at the WSMLW will be reborn. No, it
it
will
lives
not.
on in the Mascoutin Valley, that's for
It
sure.
lives.
So
It's for the time being. It's living on through the Mascoutin Valley. It's because the Sioux line never really connected with those guys. God
you know,
forbid you have whatever. Yeah,
it's all
we've
right.
said his name. We said his name too many times. He had
And
to
he
come
just
on.
showed up. Yep,
Yeah, he just
showed up.
shows up.
But
Love that guy.
no, at any rate, yeah, I don't think I'd ever throw in the towel. And I love the challenge. I love the challenge, and that's why I do it, because I really get enjoyment out of solving the problem.
Yeah.
And but it's fun, and it's been a fun experience too. So like the way where I've been or where we've gotten to tonight, this did not just happen like that. This was years of trial and error and learning, and making friends with people in the section crew like Tom Klamoski, Tom Gazier, Luke, right?
Yep.
And soaking up all of their information, and basically saying, aha, I can apply this or I can apply that. Watching like Otter Creek and Rio Grande's YouTube channel and how Dennis approaches stuff. That's
Boomer.
another. Boomer's another one. Yeah, right.
Boomer has
So,
helped immensely with a couple of
right,
things already. It's just,
right.
yeah. I mean,
So
it's really funny when you take a step back and you look at it when you go to somebody else's layout and you take a look at the way they're doing it. And in years past, I would always say to myself, I never would have done it that way.
yeah,
I wouldn't do it. And now I've gotten to a point where I'd look at it and I'd be like, that's kind of interesting. I never thought of that.
Yep.
Because as a model railroader, we have kind of a built-in arrogance to us that the way we do things is the right way.
It's the only way.
It's the only way. That's the only way to do it. And having a guy like Luke around really reels that in, because
Humbling.
it's humbling because and this is where him being such good friends of mine, I just hate doing this because I know I'm going to hear about this at work. So it's one of those things where guys like Luke will make you look at things in a way that you've never thought of before. And the biggest thing is one of the things is like when you're looking at approaching something, his biggest thing has always been, and I'll take this thought to my grave. And I implore everybody out there in the section crew, start thinking like this. Start looking at your layout like this. It's just basic shapes. So all it is basic shapes. If you can take a look at something and start breaking it down into its basic shapes, you can build anything out there. Anything can be built because it's just nothing but shapes. There it is right there. He just said it right here. It's nothing but shapes. And ever since he had to drill that through my head, because I'd be complaining about something, he'd say, "The rectangle with a triangle on top. What is your complaint? What are you complaining about?" And I'll be like, what? Yeah, it's a rectangle. Yeah. It's a rectangle with a triangle. What is your? Do you just have to reconfigure the triangle? Oh, well, I never thought of it like that. And as soon as you start looking at things like that, it can really help you to see the layout differently with the design elements, your track structures, I mean, just everything that you got going on. It is a really good concept. So thanks for wrecking my modeling career, Luke. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fun to have friends and get
Yeah.
together and talk
Yeah.
about stuff. Boy, I'm just going to do this seamless transition into promoting our Facebook group while we're at it. So
Hey, go for it.
talking about friends, talking about community. If you guys haven't yet checked out our Facebook group, we got a really good community going on over there. So it's Second Section Podcast. And great group of modelers sharing ideas, coming together, asking questions, answering questions. And we had an interesting question come up in the Facebook group from Dave Winter that I want to get out in front for those that aren't in here or that aren't on Facebook, but here on YouTube. And so there was a question by Dave. Let me see if I can find it here in the DOS group, where he was talking about doing some sort of almost like a takeaway modeling clinic. So I'm going to bring this post up.
Oh yeah.
And I
remember seeing that.
Yes, and I wanted to bring it up with the section crew here because I thought it was a really good idea. So we'll bring it up on screen. And again, this is the type of fun that you get to do here when you're part of the gang. So from David, it says, Andy and Mike, have you guys ever thought about doing a group build or weathering project together with the members of the section crew? Maybe pick a fairly common car. Everyone weathers it and posts their results or builds a kit and details weathers kit bashes, etc. And then the crew could pick two of their favorites, and we could talk about it on the show and how we did it. I think this is an amazing idea.
I love this idea.
Yeah. It's kind of an expansion, like he says, of what's on your workbench. Just a thought. Well, David, I think that's a damn fine thought.
I love the idea behind this. This has got so much. That's got so much potential. Wow, does that ever have a good? That's a yeah.
So if you guys have interest, guys and gals, if you guys have interest in doing this, why don't you send us join the Facebook group and respond to his post. That would be the best way to do it. Or send Mike or I a direct message if you're wanting to participate in this. And maybe we can do something where we can get some stuffs and things together and do a group build, and then have the folks on the show to essentially talk about how they did it. Kind of almost like a little mini modelers retreat, so to speak.
Yeah.
Around one model. So we're sharing, we're building, and we're having fun while we're doing it, while we learn. So I did want to make a plug for that before we tied down for tonight.
Look at this. Now here, this reminds me of Mike Shanky right here.
Yeah.
Something like that might get me finally learn to do some weathering. Yeah. Get a hold of Mike Shanky and ask him how that rabbit hole worked out for him. He went from being totally terrified to even touch his engines with anything when they came out of the box to being really good at getting his stuff weathered.
Practice.
Yeah, practice. He's done a really, it's really cool.
Yep. So send us a message or join the Facebook group and respond to that post, because we want your feedback, because Mike and I thought this was a really good way to promote the learning in the hobby as well. Plus it'll be fun. If you want, you can come on the show live, hang out with Mike and I, and we'll have a nice show, and you can talk about your model and how you did it. Just like
we'll tear it apart. We'll tell you how bad it is.
No,
No.
it's going to be
No?
fun. It's going to be
Oh,
fun.
no.
We're not doing that, Mike.
Oh,
So,
oh,
and then I do want to just make a note. Yes, Todd, I can pin that in the post. And
that's such a good idea.
I think it was a really good idea. So
why did we not think of that?
Because we're not smart.
Oh.
So
yeah, that's right. There's that.
Yeah, we're not smart, Mike. I mean,
No.
we rely on the education and the brightness of others to help us along. We're just pretty. That's
yes. Yeah, we're eye candy. We're model railroading eye candy is what we are.
Yeah. So anyways, next show is going to be on January 23rd. So Mike and I are still piecing the plan together for that one. However, that is my birthday, so we're going to have a party here at the second section. I turned 44.
What?
It'd be a great time. Yeah. Yep. 44.
You're that old?
I'm that old.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm old.
Yeah.
So, yep. So we're gonna do that on the 23rd, 7:00 Central Time. And again, if you guys haven't subscribed to us here, make sure you do. Leave us a comment if you like the show tonight. That's always a good indication if you like more educational content like this. So, Mike, any final thoughts before we tie down? And there will be cake for me.
There will be, for Andy. He's not gonna. I think you should ship a piece of cake to everybody, and then we can all eat it at the same time. On that, what could go wrong with that?
I'll just give everyone a Tic Tac. Then that's pretty much all I can.
Really? Oh, that would be funny.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. Okay, final thoughts. Yeah, a lot of them. I guess, we talked about a lot of different elements and design element things tonight. And we talked about a lot of personal preference things too, because in this hobby, I think everything can get boiled right down to that, is that it's your personal preference as to how you want your railroad to be perceived and how you want your, hey, wait a minute.
Did you write it down?
I have it on a Post-it note right here.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think that when you go to start designing your railroad, make sure that you're doing it for you first and foremost. Don't worry about the 60 people you might need. Don't worry about whatever else it is. Make sure it's what you want and not what other people want, because that's what is going to make you the happiest.
Right.
And so, and it doesn't matter if you're modeling, the 1800s or a steam era or transition era or whatever era you're modeling, modern, whatever. None of that matters when it comes to the designing of your railroad. The only thing that part matters is that it's what you want to do. So just make sure that's first and foremost, and don't be afraid to ask for opinions, especially from people who have done a lot of design and railroad and model work.
Yes.
And another thing is if you have model railroad friends who are railroaders, talk to them. They will actually, you'd be surprised. They will give you they'll lean you in the direction, because you might have an idea of how something is supposed to be done, but they can set you and physically show you what you're looking at, trying to do. So just design your layout for you, and get to it, and let's make this an outstanding modeling season. and just have a lot of fun. Get out there and enjoy yourselves. So that's all I
Yeah.
got.
Yeah, 100%. And just want to again thank the section crew for sticking in there. We're almost coming up to the 3 hour mark again.
Yeah, we got to reel this in again.
Yeah, we're getting out of control, and but that's good because we're having fun, and
Yeah.
it's definitely a good thing to hang out with you guys here on a Thursday night. So I do
It's
want to
so much fun.
just make one more pitch. If you guys want to continue the conversation talking about some of the layout design elements, we got a lot of people in that Facebook group that have a lot of experience that they can share. Take
Yeah.
advantage of them. If you're new starting out, say, hey, I'm new, I want to design a layout. How do I do this? Come to the Facebook group. We got all sorts of great modelers in there that are willing to share their wisdom with you. So please make sure you ask questions, and it's going to be fun and you're going to learn something. So I can't pitch that enough. So as for myself, Mike, thank you to the section crew. And we are all going to see you guys on January 23rd for Cake and Model Railroading. Mike, what do you think? Should we play out?
I think we should play out, and everybody just keep modeling.